want to show you how I do all my roof icing, I call it, and all my fancy stitching. I'm sitting in my big comfy chair at the house, and I've got my pillow in my lap, and this is how I stitch while I watch TV with my husband. So here's how this works. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is do a blanket stitch. And I did have this stitched down before. I forgot to do the video part. So I'm going to do the video part now and show you how to do the stitches. So you can see it's already been stitched down before. This is how much of my thread I have left out of a full ball of 12 weight Valdani. I think this is color 4. So I'm going to get me piece of thread off. Got my lanyard with my needle on it, or with my scissors on it, and cut it off. All right. So again, on my lanyard, and like I said, I usually have this around my neck, but since my phone is around my neck so that I can video, I don't have it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide my needle threader inside the eye of the needle. I'm going to lay a little piece of my thread across. I'm going to pull it, and that's how I thread my needle. All right, so to tie a knot, I'm going to place the end of the thread between my thumb and forefinger. I'm going to put the eye of the needle in there also. I'm going to wrap it 1, 2, 3 times. Place my fingernail down on it and pull. And I have this cute little knot. Okay? All right, so now to get this started, first of all, I have fused it down. I have cut this side with a straight rotary cutter. And this side I trimmed with a pinking blade rotary cutter. So it gives me that nice little gingerbread looking effect that I like so much. So the first thing I want to show you is I'll stitch it down with a blanket stitch. All right, and I do sit Indian style a lot of times, so my legs are all folded up underneath me. All right, so here I've made a stitch. Got my knot pulled through. Now, here's the thing you got to watch about. Just like looking at this one. You can make this wider, your gingerbreading or your roof icing wider if you use it for another project. But when I do my blanket stitch, I don't want to come down in here so far that I can't make my little running stitch also. So you want to be careful and not go, you know, half or you probably don't want to go more than half the distance with your blanket stitch. So I'm going to start my little blanket stitch here. All right, I'm going to pull it up. And notice each time I make my little semicircle. Now when I put my needle in, my fingernail over here helps me because I will push it down. So push the back wool, this roof wool down so that my needle comes up right on top of my fingernail. Okay? Now, if you, and before COVID, I will say, and you can see there's little marks there, if you have your nails professionally done, which I normally do, with COVID I haven't, you will start to have little scratch marks in your in your fingernail, your pretty fingernails. But you know, it's just part of the job. I don't worry about it. So, all right, so I'm going to put my needle down. You're going through several layers here, so I'm going to push it down with my thumbnail and have my needle come right above, if y'all can see that. Let me push a little farther so you can see. So that will guide my needle up. I do have a thimble on, so my thimble is right there pushing that in also. So here we go. And usually I stitch pretty fast. So something else that I would probably tell you on this one too, I've got a little knot going. Usually if I pull that, it pulls it right out. Oh, of course it won't. So let's see if we can get it out. There we go. I do wear a thimble. I've talked to you about this before. The thimble is just there to help me push. It's actually behind pushing whenever I've got my 2 fingers on the needle. If you've not worn a thimble, they're a little hard to get used to, I will say. They're a little aggravating at first, but once you learn to place it behind when you push, when you stitch, they're actually awesome. This is, I've told you in some of the previous things, this is a deal thimble made by the Deal Button Company. It's actually a little piece of rubber. It molds to fit whatever shape your finger is. So if it's a little arthritic, that's okay. It'll mold to fit it. You can see I've worn it for a little while. You can see that it is, my clock's chiming. I'm in my living room. I like my clock. So I've, when you get a thimble, it needs to be, and this one is the small one. They come in several colors, but you want it to fit your finger really tight so that if I sling my hand, it doesn't come off. If you get it on there and you get it loose, your finger, you can see, will shrink underneath it, and then it won't stay on. So if you push it on your finger when you purchase a thimble and it feels a little tight, please don't hesitate to get it tight, because like I said, your finger shrinks underneath it. So you want one that's going to fit really snug. And I worried when I got these that they would, I'd punch a hole through them pretty quick, and I haven't. I'll tell you, they're very, very strong. I've never punched a hole through it. I've been asked a lot of times how I keep my stitches even, and I will show you. As I pull this thread tight, I can see a little shadow of where I need to take my next stitch. It kind of pulls it. You see it right there? You see the little shadow right there? So I don't have to mark. I just pull it a little snug till I find my next stitch and just go. I hope this is showing up on the camera. But yeah, and then I just pull it. Okay, now I wasn't paying attention and I got a little close. Do you see all that? So I'm going to go back. To take this out, I just take my needle out, or my thread out of my needle, and then I don't get over here and start pulling from this side, because this side will tend to ravel. So I'll show you how to take your stitches out. So there is one stitch, and pull that stitch. I just put my needle in there and pull it. I'm going to go ahead and take this one out too. Okay, it's probably where I already had it stitched before. It was falling in place with my running stitch here, and I got a little close. So there you go. You can see that it's easy to get to talking and mess up. So here we go, but pulling stitches out is not so hard. All right, so let's see. I will take the end of my thread and pull it through my needle, and I'm good to go. Guys, I don't like to sit there and fight. Now see how I pull those stitches out and it's wanting to act up? Can you all see that stitch, how it's come out? So what I'll do is pull it up a little bit and just pull my thread away from it, and it drops it right back into place. Now how cool is that? See if I can show you again. Okay, so when you start pulling stitches out and messing with your thread, sometimes you get this little mess, and you don't want to take another stitch, because if I took another stitch, it wouldn't drop it in place. See how it doesn't look very pretty? So what I do is I will loosen up that stitch and then bring it over to the side and pull it to the side, and see, now it's back where it's supposed to be. All right, now we're ready to go again. Okay. All things that can happen will happen when you're videoing, and I think it's kind of good, because I think it shows you some of the things that could go wrong. So I hope this is helping. All right, now this is better. This is much better. Let me zip on through this, and I'll show you a little running stitch. Okay, I've got a little knot going on. There we go. All right, now right here, I can't take this stitch all the way down into here, so to make it the right length, but I will go under the piece of trim, the icing as I call it on this one, and take that last stitch just to make it look even. Now see, the stitch is underneath here, but it's even here. So, and then I will take the stitch on the end here, the straight stitch, and I will go up underneath that icing, and I call that icing. I kind of like that icing. It's no calories and fat-free, and all that good stuff. All right, so now you can see that part is done. Now, I could go in there and tie a knot and start back over, over here, but what I'm going to do, just to save time, is I'm going to go right here and I'm going to start my running stitch. All right, so here it goes. Start right back there. Let me pick up my piece and lay it back down. All right, so you can see, and like I said, I have stitched this one before because I had forgotten to take that part out, or forgotten to video that part. So I will start stitching, and what I do is I'll gather it up and take my fingers to it. Now my other finger is underneath there, and as you can see, the calluses that I have on this finger from all the stitching. It just is what it is. It's not pretty, but it just is. I do a lot of stitching, a lot of hand stitching. But that is the one that the needle sticks to whenever I'm stitching. It just helps me to guide my fabric. So I am going to stitch across here. So I've kind of loaded my needle. Now, if you have trouble pushing this through, you probably will have trouble unless you have this thimble on. So I take this thimble and I just push it through. All right, so there's those stitches. Now I just come back, and you can do them one at a time. You can just do one at a time, and it wouldn't be as hard to pull through. It wouldn't be. But now, if I do two at a time, it goes a little faster, but I'll do one at a time. That's fine. But notice I've gathered all this up, and I've got, again, look where my thumbnail is. It's right there to push the fabric under the needle. So that way I get the stitch I want, the even stitch I want to get. If I didn't, I would come in here and I'd be trying to fish, and, you know, I like to have my thumbnail right there. Now, is this the only way to do this? No, it's not. Okay, so there we go. Now I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to take that last stitch and place it kind of underneath the edge of that icing again and pull it to the back. Okay, so see, there's my stitches again. All right, and I'm good to go. So that's how I did all my icing stitches. All right, so now my thread's to the back. I'm going to flip my piece over. I am going to take a little bite and do 1, 2, 3, and guess what? There we go. All right. Take my little scissors that are usually, like I said, around my neck, so they're easy to hang on to, and we got it. All right. I always keep a pin cushion beside, hanging on my chair too. All right. So there we go. And there is your roof icing.